This is a story I'm not proud of, mostly for my naivety when I was in middle school and early high school. I didn't know how to talk to girls at all back then, but that's a lot of boys in middle school, right? I wasn't shy in general. I had friends. I did normal things an 8th grader would do. I just had never kissed a girl. Some of my friends at the time claimed they already went further than that, and I was starting to feel pressure, but I was still struggling to approach girls that way. The mentality around girls went from you to wow in like a year. I was a pretty big gamer back then. Console games, computer MMORPGs. That was my whole world. This was in 8th grade. I was like 13. My voice was probably still pre-pubescent. It was 2010. My favorite games were GTA 4, Call of Duty, and this MMORPG called Ganyu. In Ganyu, you'd level up by killing monsters. The more you leveled up, the stronger monsters and better hunting grounds you could unlock. There were tons of players, and the online community was super active. My older brother played a little too, but I was definitely the bigger fan. I had a guild, a town, all of that. One day, I befriended a female player. She was a higher level than me. Her username was Medusa. Every time I logged in, if she was online, she'd message me, and I'd message her. We'd party up, share EXP, and just talk for hours. She knew a lot about me, my age, my town, even some personal family stuff. She opened up to me too. Eventually, she told me her real name was Teresa. It was weird, feeling such a connection with someone you'd never heard speak. Never even seen in person. It felt like a pen pal, but even more intense. She said she lived in New York too, about an hour away from me. After a few weeks, maybe a month, we started talking about possibly meeting. But to do that, we'd have to exchange numbers. I didn't have a phone yet, just an iPod Touch, so I downloaded a texting app that let me message cell phones. Through the app, I sent her a selfie, a cringy 8th grade boy selfie, trying to look cool. She replied, "You're cute," and then she sent a picture of herself. She looked a couple years older than me, like 15, the age she had said she was, and honestly, she was really attractive. That's when the messages became more flirty, romantic. Still, we were both minors, so neither of us could just drive an hour away to meet. But she had a solution. She said her sister had friends near me and could drive her over. I was thrilled. We made a plan for that Saturday, when my parents would be away in the Hamptons for the weekend. It would just be me and my 18-year-old brother at home. I asked him to go hang out with friends that night, so I could be alone with Teresa. I gave her my address. She said she'd come later, at night. No exact time. We still hadn't spoken on the phone. I had never even heard her voice. That entire day, I was too nervous to even play video games. I cleaned my room. I practiced what I'd say. I fixed my hair over and over. Then, a message from Teresa. "I'm here." I jumped up and ran to the door, looked through the peephole. The street was quiet, no cars, no movement. I messaged, "I don't see you." She said, "Oh, I must have the wrong house. Give me a minute." That was weird. I locked the door and waited on the couch. Played games on my iPod. A few minutes later, "I'm here again. Come outside." I replied, "Ring the bell so I know it's the right house." Ding dong. My heart pounded. I walked slowly to the door, looked through the peephole again. Still, no one. "Teresa," I called out. Then I saw it. A hand reached up toward the door and knocked. "Teresa?" I asked again, frozen. Then, a bald, creepy-looking, short man stepped into view. He looked right into the peephole and said, "Hey, Joey, it's Medusa from Ganyu. I want to talk." I ran from the door with my hands over my mouth. My body just collapsed into fear. It had all been a lie, a disgusting, dangerous lie. I tried to call my brother, no answer. The doorbell rang again. I ran to my room and locked the door. I held the house phone, thinking about calling my parents, but I was too embarrassed. My room was the only one with the light still on. There's a big window facing the yard. I turned off the lamp, peeked through the blinds. Just a crack. And there he was. That same man, staring into my window. He started knocking on the glass, saying things like, "We had a real connection. We can at least be friends." I said nothing. I called my brother again. This time, he picked up. I said, "Please come home right now." Teresa was a grown man. He's at my window. My brother, big even for a teenager, said he was coming with his friends. We stayed on the phone. I hid upstairs in my parents' bedroom. The man kept blowing up my message app. "I just want to talk." There's a reason I had to lie. Finally, my brother and 3 of his friends got home. They confronted the man outside. I stepped out now too, just to be near them. They screamed at him, called him a sick freak. The man tried to defend himself. "I was just trying to teach your brother a lesson." Inviting strangers online? It's dangerous. But I yelled, "Then why were you saying we could be good friends through my window?" That shut him up. My brother's friend shoved him. Another threw a rock at his car. He bolted, ran to his vehicle, and sped off into the night. We never saw him again. It was humiliating and terrifying. But I was so grateful my brother came home. They probably saved me from something horrific. And it still haunts me, how easily I gave my trust to someone who never was who they said they were. I live in Chandler, Arizona. This happened when I was 17 years old, still living with my parents. I was deep in my gaming phase, and since it was summer, scorching hot outside, I spent most of my time indoors playing Call of Duty, Black Ops on my PC. My parents traveled a lot, and I was the last one to move out. I'd often have the whole house to myself. On this particular night, a Friday or some night school was out the next day, I stayed up late gaming. Earlier that afternoon, I submitted a paper that was due and then went out shopping, something my mom made me do before every one of their trips. They'd leave cash for me and expect receipts, just to make sure I wasn't pocketing anything. So I drove to Whole Foods in my old Camry. While waiting in line to check out, a man behind me started talking. He commented on something I was buying and wouldn't stop. Even as I bagged my groceries, he kept chatting, only to me. Not to the cashier, not to anyone else. I found it strange, but I was polite. I said, "Have a good one," and left. It was a brutal June evening. The sun had gone down by the time I got home, and the last thing I wanted was to be outside again. Once I unpacked everything, I got back on Call of Duty and messaged my friend Johnny to join me. We played Team Deathmatch for a couple of hours. I had my Logitech noise-canceling headset on, completely immersed. At some point, I told Johnny I was going to eat and would be back in about an hour. While I was downstairs making pasta, I heard something like a thump from upstairs. It could have been anything. A house settling, maybe. But the thought crossed my mind, did that sound like a footstep? Just to be safe, I went and locked the front door. Up until then, I had this habit of leaving it unlocked. We lived in a good neighborhood, and I honestly never took the idea of a break-in seriously. Back upstairs, I called out, "Tristan?" my brother's name, just in case. I knew he wasn't supposed to be home, but I had to check. No answer. I went back to my room and got back online with Johnny. We kept playing. At one point, I glanced toward the hallway. I usually left the door open a crack, like my mom asked me to when I was home alone. The hallway was dim, lit only by a nightlight down the hall. My room glowed faint blue from the LED wall lights. Through the crack, I couldn't see much, just darkness. After a match, Johnny said he was taking a leak. While he was away, I looked at my phone. Then I looked back and froze. The hallway crack was no longer black. I could see through it now. My first thought, was someone blocking it earlier? That's when my blood ran cold. I spun my gaming chair around to look behind me and saw him. A man was sitting on my bed. He was upright, rigid posture, hands resting on his thighs, almost like he was posing, and he looked like he was smiling. My instincts kicked in. I jumped up, knocking my monitor and everything else off my desk as I climbed onto it and screamed, "What do you want?" He really smiled then. a full-on grin, teeth showing, like he was laughing. I bolted from the room, out into the hallway. Halfway down, I turned around and saw him. He had risen and now stood in my bedroom doorway. Again, I shouted, "What do you want?" He spoke, slow and stuttering. "Can I play too?" I was stunned. "How did you get in here?" I demanded. He walked forward a bit and pointed toward the stairs. I assumed he meant the front door. I hadn't locked it. Not until after I'd heard the thump. Heart pounding, I ran downstairs. I grabbed the landline and a kitchen knife and yelled, "You need to leave. I'm calling 911. I heard his footsteps descending the stairs. Then I saw him pass the kitchen, glance at me, and casually walk out the front door. I sprinted to slam it shut and lock it, finally locking it for real. I stood there gripping the phone, debating whether to call my parents. Eventually I did. My mom was concerned at first, but then she got furious. She passed the phone to my dad. He told me to check the house to make sure nothing was stolen. I did. Everything was still there. But something was off about the man. He wasn't overtly violent, but there was something wrong about him. The most haunting part? Knowing he had been watching me through the crack in my door, sitting silently, just watching me game. This happened last week. Just a bit of background information. I had just officially quit playing Fortnite. Not that it's important, but this was May 2021, so Fortnite had already lost a lot of players. My friend Brandon suggested I download Apex Legends and play with him. I already had the game installed, so I just updated it to the current version. I logged on and remembered how bad I was at this game. I hadn't played since it first came out. My stats were awful, and I only had the starting Legends, Pathfinder, and Bloodhound because I thought they were the best starters. Something else to note, I have a very loud gaming headset so I could barely hear any background noise. The actual story happened when I was home alone. My parents had gone out for their belated anniversary dinner, and my brother was at his friend's house. I was playing Apex with Brandon when he suddenly said, "Dude, what the fuck? I just got a random message." "What does it say?" I asked. I remember exactly how it went. He said, "Look out the window." "Don't look out the window. Dude, there's nothing there." I replied. "No," he said. "It says look out your window." "What? Why?" I asked as I turned my head slightly to the right, then to the left. I didn't know which window to look out of. This room has 5 windows. I looked at each of them in a panic. Then I found it, the one least visible from my couch. There was a man just standing there. I was clueless. I didn't think much of it because the dude was facing away from the window. Little did I know. I put my headphones back on. Brandon got another text. He told me, "Luke, I'm not messing with you. There's someone outside your window." "I know," I told him. "I just saw him. He's just looking the other way." "What?" he asked. "He just took a picture of you. At the window. Looking clueless." "What the fuck?" I said. "I suggest you call the cops and get him out of there," he told me. Then, strangely, he stopped talking. I heard the sound of an Xbox notification. He left the party. He never does that without saying goodbye or letting me know he's going to bed. I saw he was still in Apex, playing in a match. "What the fuck?" I muttered to myself. Eventually, I got a party invitation from Brandon again. I joined and asked what happened. The next thing I know, there was a deeper voice, not Brandon's, on the mic. I remember every detail of what it said. "Come outside right now, or I will come in." I couldn't recognize the voice at all, but I knew it belonged to a grown man. I looked back at the window. Sure enough, there he was, banging on it. He looked completely demented. His face was a dark red, and his hands were gushing blood as he pounded on the glass. It started to crack. I picked up my phone, which was right next to me. I was horrified to see it was at 1%, basically out of battery. I kept saying, "Oh, shh," over and over. I put my phone to my ear and mouthed the words, "There's a man trying to break into my house. His face is dark red and his hands are bleeding." Next thing I know, he starts screaming while bashing at the window. Then I thought, Shakarem. Second, there's screen sheets in front of all our windows. So how, if he never cut them, was he already at the glass? I took too much time thinking. Finally, a shard of glass fell to the ground. A hole, large enough for me to shout through, opened up. I screamed, "Go the fuck away before the cops get here, you son of a butt." I used too much breath yelling those words. Another shard fell, then another. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a large knife from the knife block. When I returned to the window, there was already a hole big enough for him to crawl through. And he had already started. I ran back to the kitchen, grabbed the cordless phone, ran upstairs, and dialed 911. I told them the exact words I had mouthed earlier on my cell, along with the fact that he was now inside my house. Unfortunately, the only doors with locks upstairs are the bathroom doors. Thinking quickly, I went into my parents' room, then into the bathroom inside it, and locked the door. At that moment, I thought I was being smart. I had left the bedroom door wide open, and the bathroom door, which is tucked behind a wall, is invisible from the hall. I figured if the guy came upstairs, he'd think no one was in the bedroom. Suddenly, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. My heart started pounding harder than ever, and it got harder to breathe. I opened one of the drawers, looking for something sharp, and I think he must have heard it. He came stomping into the bedroom. I heard sirens outside. I couldn't thank the cops enough for being that fast. He heard them too. At this point, he had nowhere to go. I heard him run outside, but he was too late. The police were already there. I ran outside to the officers and told them everything. The man was arrested, handcuffs clamped around his bloody wrists. Later, I found out I had killed that guy in Apex, and kind of shit-talked him just an hour or two earlier. Somehow, he got my address and Brandon's phone number. Some people are just fucked up in the head, and, apparently, they'll do unspeakable things over a video game. Everyone gets frustrated from being killed in a match, but showing up to someone's house to possibly kill them in real life? That's beyond messed up. This guy had to be completely mental. A few police cars stayed at my house overnight after they took him away. The man was later convicted of aggravated burglary.